Today, I'm going to explain an action thriller movie called Project Silence. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in a Korean government laboratory where scientists conduct various experiments on dogs under a program named Project Silence. They cruelly implant these animals with chips to turn them into weapons that can be used in wars. Meanwhile, at the Korean Security Department, Secretary Jung has a chat with his deputy director Cha. Jung is contesting in the upcoming presidential elections and is impressed by Cha's work for his campaign. Hence, he gives him a huge bonus as a show of gratitude. Later at home, Cha helps his daughter Kyung-min pack her bags. It is revealed that ever since the death of his wife, the relationship between the father and daughter has been strained. Now, the young girl is leaving her home for further studies in the US. That night, the duo leave for the airport but stop at a gas station on the way. They refuel the car and try to pay using a credit card, but the petrol attendant Joe asks for cash as the credit card machine isn't working. However, Cha sees that Joe has a master key to a tow truck hanging by his pocket. This makes him realize that the guy is just a driver, so he abruptly leaves, saying he'll be back later. Meanwhile, at the airport, sisters Mi-ran and Yu-ra have missed their flight for an important tournament. It is revealed that Yu-ra is a pro golfer and Mi-ran is her manager. This debacle means that they are forced to take a bus to reach their destination. Minutes later, all these different groups arrive at a foggy bridge outside the city. Most of the drivers try to move carefully, except a jerk in a yellow car. Turns out he is live streaming on social media and is driving like a madman to impress his audience. A mysterious armored vehicle with a cage is also passing through the bridge. It drives by Cha's car, and Kyung-min sees a sad dog peeping out its window. Closely following the armored vehicle is a car containing Dr. Yang, the head researcher of Project Silence. He is accompanied by several soldiers who seem to be heading to some laboratory. At this moment, the yellow car loses control and comes to an abrupt halt in the middle of the road. This triggers a series of collisions on the bridge, causing widespread devastation. The news of the pileup at the bridge reaches Joe, and he deduces that Cha must be trapped there. It is revealed that Joe is actually a tow truck driver for the same employer who owns the gas station. He was filling in as a petrol attendant as the other employees had gone for dinner. Joe is now worried as he wants to get the money for the petrol before his boss finds out. So, he goes out in his truck with his dog Jody to look for the rude customer. On the other hand, the father and daughter, who are moving in the free lane, observe the chaos around them. Suddenly, Yang's car, which is in front of them, gets a tire stuck in some debris. This causes it to lose control and roll over uncontrollably. The tire then flies off and hits Cha's car, causing it to crash into the lane divider. Eventually, the armored vehicle also collides with an overturned truck, causing extensive damage. When the chaos finally subsides, the driver hurriedly checks the cage to make sure its contents are secure. Meanwhile, Kyung-min thinks they should help people, but Dad tells her to stay in the car while he investigates. He sees that the soldiers have already rescued Yang, who keeps muttering about some dogs. While Cha stays with the scientist, the soldiers rush to check the armored vehicle. They find it open with only the body of the driver in the cage. This, for some reason, worries the captain, so he immediately orders all cell phone signals on the bridge to be blocked. In the meantime, Kyung-min hears a strange banging sound coming from nearby and decides to check it out. She soon discovers a large dog called E9 banging its head against the lane divider. Kyung-min tries to offer food to calm it down, and the dog looks at her with affection, but right then, her father arrives at the scene, and E9 runs away. Elsewhere, the soldiers inform Yang that the dogs have escaped and urge him to start the control program. The worried scientist complies, and he immediately activates a software on his laptop. This is when Joe arrives in his truck, and he's shocked to see the chaos unfolding. A few minutes later, Yang finishes activating the program that maps the location of the dogs. They all have a chip in their heads that is controlled through his software. However, activating the program also makes these animals extremely violent. The dogs then lunge at the soldiers with incredible speed, but they are eventually pushed back into the cage using batons with specialized electric tips. Yang is left puzzled as he notices that E9, the mother of the dog pack, is still free and has not responded to his signal. Nonetheless, he turns off the program as the dogs are getting increasingly violent. Cha, who has been watching the events unfold, demands an explanation, but Yang simply tells him to ask his boss about Project Silence before running off to help the others. Nearby, a soldier finds a chip on the ground and realizes that one of the dogs has managed to remove it. Unbeknownst to him, the chip belongs to E9, who got rid of the chip by banging her head against the lane divider earlier. Shortly after, an aircraft arrives and begins to lift the cage with the dogs. Just when the process is going smoothly, a soldier on board notices that E9 has also managed to sneak into the aircraft. She immediately attacks the soldier and causes the towing machine to drop the cage to the ground. The co-pilot tries to shoot the dog, but she cleverly kills him before attacking the pilot as well. In the aftermath, the aircraft loses control and hits the bridge cables, but E9 cleverly jumps off before it crashes. The high-pitched noise from the collision drives the other dogs crazy. Eventually, they lose control, open their cage, and begin to kill anyone they come across. Panic ensues among the humans, and a dog drags Yang towards the bridge's fence, but Cha grabs him in the nick of time and pulls him out of the animal's mouth. Seconds later, a soldier appears at the spot and begins to electrocute the beast, but a second dog jumps on his throat and kills him. Meanwhile, Kyun makes her way back to her father, and the father-daughter duo escape from there. Shortly after, they run into Yang, who has somehow found a working car. Cha immediately takes the steering and they drive away from there. On the way, Kyun-min forces her dad to pick up Joe and Jody, who get into the trunk of the car. Unfortunately, a part of the aircraft stuck on the bridge's cables explodes. This causes a piece of debris to smash the window of Cha's car, resulting in an accident. While the humans are regaining their composure, a dog jumps onto the car and sniffs at the glass for a few seconds. The silent passengers watch on as the dog soon gets bored and leaves. At this moment, Yang finally decides to reveal the entire truth. He explains that he had developed rescue dogs that respond to human voices, but the army reprogrammed them for hunting. This was commissioned by the United States, who wanted assassin dogs capable of finding and killing terrorists. They were trained to recognize the target's voice and attack the source of the voice, but the project didn't work and these violent dogs were left without purpose. Furthermore, Yang adds that they were on the bridge because the army was trying to get rid of the failed specimens. Minutes later, Cha manages to use the scientist's radio to contact Secretary Jung. The presidential candidate has been monitoring the situation and tells them to go back to the middle of the bridge as the flames from a nearby truck contain toxic gas. He also shockingly reveals that Project Silence involves the security department. Before Cha can process this information, some dogs surround the car, but an explosion occurs nearby. The huge flames scare the beasts away, but the toxic smoke enters the car. Luckily, a passenger bus carrying survivors shows up to help, and they rapidly get in. But the danger is still not averted, as the other section of the aircraft erupts into a huge ball of fire. The shockwave breaks the cables of the bridge, causing the middle of it to collapse. Several cars fall into the area, but fortunately, the bus manages to escape in time. Once things calm down, Cha introduces herself as a government official and assures the survivors that rescue is on the way. He also lies a lot, saying that the phones are down because of the explosion. As for the dogs, Cha claims that they are from the Army's K9 unit, who are suffering from a serious case of rabies. Minutes later, a SWAT team descends on the bridge and heads straight for the bus to evacuate the survivors. While the group crosses the bridge, a lot of car alarms begin to go off around them. The soldiers move forward to investigate, only to be ambushed by the dogs that were setting off the alarms on purpose. The beasts are so clever that when attacking the soldiers, they go for the guns first, causing them to fire at random and hurt each other. While the soldiers are killed one by one, the father and daughter run back to the bus and hide in the luggage compartment. Unfortunately, Cha realizes that his radio has fallen out, so he goes to retrieve it. He quickly picks up the radio and takes the opportunity to grab his daughter's bag, which she had dropped earlier. He also picks up a few flares that a soldier must have dropped during the skirmish. Back at the luggage compartment, Hyung-min watches a video of her mother reading a book to her in the hospital. The kid is then interrupted by Yang, who opens a hatch that takes her to the main part of the bus. The scientist reveals that E9 is the original dog, while the others are her clones. The beasts are attacking them as revenge for all the horrendous experiments they had to endure. Elsewhere, Cha finds Joe, Jody, and the Golf sisters hiding under a truck's wreckage. Joe, who had overheard Cha talking with Young earlier, admits that he told the survivors whatever truth he knows about the dogs. After a while, Cha shoots a flare into the sky. He then calls Jung, who sees the flames on the security cameras. Cha explains that the group will try to leave the bus, and Jung promises that there will be a SWAT team waiting at the break of the bridge. But when Cha reveals that the survivors know about Project Silence, Jung hangs up without saying anything. The secretary now has to make a difficult choice: either let his secret be exposed and risk losing the elections, or let the survivors die. Following this, the group of Cha, Joe, and the Golf sisters decide to head back to the bus to join the rest of the survivors. They slowly sneak near the bus, but find it surrounded by the dogs. Luckily, Cha manages to ward them off by using the remaining flares, allowing them to finally get inside. Shortly after, the bus arrives at the collapsed part of the bridge and tries to contact the SWAT team by radio, but when no one answers even after several attempts, Kyung-min suggests a plan. In the next scene, the group attaches wires to the bus's door and leaves it open. They then hide in the luggage compartment and monitor the dogs' positions with a camera. Soon, the beasts enter the bus and begin sniffing around. The hiding group waits for the perfect moment and pulls the wire to close the door, leaving the animals trapped inside. Following this, they cautiously get out of the small door of the luggage compartment. Once inside, the group looks for the SWAT team, but there's no one around. Yang then pulls Cha aside and asks who he was talking to through the radio. When the latter reveals that he was talking to Secretary Jung, the scientist begins laughing. He then explains that it was none other than Jung who started Project Silence. The revelation stuns Cha, as he had never imagined his superior would do such a thing. He then calls him in rage and insults him for his lies. In the meantime, the group plans to use Joe's truck to escape through the toxic gas, but realizes the keys are back in the bus. So, Yang looks for his laptop and comes up with a plan to lure the dogs into the cage that is on the armored vehicle. Cha volunteers to act as bait, fully aware that his life may be at risk. His daughter doesn't want him to go, but he reassures her that he'll be fine. After a while, Yang uses his broken laptop and transmits Cha's voice to the chips in the dog's head. This activates their violent nature, and the pack begins to look for its target. Just then, Yu-Ra starts hitting golf balls at the bus's window, making it weak enough for the animals to break out. The beasts immediately rush towards the cage and start shaking it to reach Cha. Joe takes this opportunity to get the keys back from the bus, but to his horror, the intelligent E9 is still there because she doesn't have a chip. A terrified Joe runs to his truck, allowing E9 to follow him. As soon as she reaches where the survivors are, she immediately goes after Yang. At this moment, a large tremor shakes the ground, leaving the survivors as well as E9 scared. They then look outside and notice that the section of the bridge with the cage is collapsing, causing Cha and the dogs to slip towards the broken edge. E9 runs to help her group, but several dogs end up falling into the sea. Now, only 2 canines, one of which is trapped under some debris, remains. While E9 does her best to help the dogs, the cage also slides to the edge of the broken section. Seconds later, Joe and the others arrive with the truck, but Cha tells them to stay back as the weight of the truck will make things worse. A worried Kyung-min then approaches with the tow hook, but Cha opens the door and tells her to stay away. He is afraid the dogs are nearby and might attack her. However, E9 doesn't attack the little girl because she's been kind to her. In the meantime, the bridge continues to collapse and one of the dogs ends up falling. E9 jumps after it, but this turns out to be the end for her and her pack. On the other hand, a desperate Kyung-min appears on top of Cha's cage and connects the hook before entering it. Then, Joe and the others get back into the truck and drive off, dragging the cage behind them. Joe performs crazy maneuvers to dodge several bits of debris, which disconnects the cage from the truck. When they finally reach the safe area, the survivors think that the father and daughter are dead, but the cage suddenly appears because its wheels were rolling thanks to the momentum gained. Once Cha and Kyung-min join the others in the truck, they drive off and arrive at the end of the bridge. In the final scene, the survivors arrive to safety and see Director Jung waiting for them with reporters. He offers them a warm welcome, only for Cha to punch him hard in the face. Then, he throws the bonus money on the ground and reveals the truth to all the reporters. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.